former Democrat advisor and co-host of the morning meeting, Dan Turrentine. Do you believe that Biden was never tested for prostate cancer?
No, I don't. I mean, it would be outrageous if he weren't. He was the oldest president in office. He had health challenges throughout his whole life. If they were not testing him, that's outright negligence, and they were putting the country at risk. Look, there was a three-legged stool that propped up Joe Biden, right? The White House put out its talking points. The press just, parroted them out, and Democrats in Congress and governors cheerleaded, right? And what happened? We ended up getting Joe Biden running for re-election. It was a complete disaster. Now, fast forward, what are Democrats asking? Not should he have run for re-election, Jesse. Should he have still been president those last 2 years? And now we're being asked to believe that he just got cancer recently? It's possible.
But it's a slim possibility.
Oh, very much so. What did he have surgery in office? Did he, get hormone therapy or taking chemo? We didn't see him for long stretches, even when he was supposedly having good days.
All right, so you don't believe what the Biden people are saying now?
I wish I could, but no.
So no one believes anything they say. Is it a cover-up if everybody knew?
Oh, look, there was no cover-up, right? I mean, if we're talking about his mental acuity, it's people saw it.
Right.
Right? I mean, 80% of Democrats said he shouldn't run for office. The only people who tried to protect him were the elites in the leadership who were all invested in him staying in office.
Right, but there were also people in the media that were saying everything's fine. 100%. Is that because they didn't see outside of their bubble that the whole rest of the country knew he wasn't?
No, look, they were all in bed with the idea that they had to defeat Donald Trump. Like, that is just the bottom line for the mainstream media. They thought if they gave an inch, Trump would take a mile. The irony is, the more they dug in to protect Joe Biden, the more they were fueling Donald Trump, because people were looking with their own eyes and saying, this guy's not well, and therefore Donald Trump is a good alternative, even for some of the swing voters who didn't necessarily like some of what Trump was saying.
What about the auto pen? What if we find out that other people, not the president, were using the auto pen to sign pardons, to sign bills? What should happen to them?
Look, I think part of the problem is I don't think it was Weekend at Bernie's. I don't think that he was totally out of it. But do I think he had bad days on end? Do I think, one of the talking points from the Biden team is, tell me an example where he didn't make a decision. That's the wrong thing. I think there were days they delayed decisions, where they didn't bring anything to him to wait until he had good days. That put the country at risk.
Right. I don't know. I don't know if Biden actually knew the border was wide open. I'm serious, because Mayorkas was telling him that it was secure. Everyone around them were saying it was secure.
And hundreds of thousands of people were coming across, right?
People were just pouring in. He might not have known. All right, Dan Turrentine, Rhymes with Wine. Good to see you.
Thank you, Jesse.
Click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You won't get it anywhere else.